One of these days, we'll get a phone that has it all. A quad camera, leather bound foldable phone with a honkin' huge removable battery. But until that day, this is CES 2020, and this is the Android Police Podcast.
Do we actually wait for the theme, or do I just go? It's Wednesday, January 8th. Welcome. I'm Ryan Hager alongside Cody Toombs. It's finally time to talk about the phones in Las Vegas. And so what have we seen so far? There's that whole pile of TCL phones. There's a Samsung phone that we saw today. What else has there been? It's been a little light.
It's honestly a lot of junk.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much how CES operates, is like 95% junk and 5% maybe stuff that's coming out someday.
Yeah, and I guess there was that folding concept as well. But yeah, everyone who's big enough to release phones now does their own events, so they don't really need to show stuff off at CES anymore.
Yeah, but we did at least get a few interesting things. And one thing I do love, and we're obviously going to be talking about this in a moment, but the concept phone, like,
the OnePlus.
you go to an auto show and they have concept cars. And this is something people on the comments have been throwing around a lot anyway. So, cheers commenters kind of got this one right. But concept cars are a big thing. Companies build something, show off something really interesting. It's not in anything that they're doing mass production of, or even necessarily something they have out on a racetrack yet. But, they build interesting things and show off what they're doing. CES took a really big departure from that for like a decade. And now we're seeing companies popping up saying, hey, we're working on something. We don't know that we'll ever sell it or ship it, but we're working on it, and we think it's neat.
That's been happening more in recent years. I remember there was the Vivo concept phone last year and the year before, right? With the last year we had the one with the in-screen camera, and the year before that, was it the first pop-up? Yeah. So it was the first in-display fingerprint sensor. That was it. And it had a pop-up camera, if I'm remembering correctly. So it is like this return to concept phones isn't like the newest thing, but it's definitely a more recent trend. There was a period where we didn't see weird experimental stuff that didn't land, and it's happening again.
Yeah. So good times. So I'll let you take this opening volley, or should I?
I can try. Okay. All right. So the OnePlus Concept One, which is the phone's name, is a concept phone. In case you haven't followed the news, it's a concept phone, which means you can't buy it. It's been the product of 18 months of development, OnePlus says, with McLaren, who's the they're sort of a how would you describe it? Like a racing company, but their name is used for a lot of different products. And on the back,
would call it the closest to a fashion brand that the automobile industry has.
It's a fashion brand. That's actually, I think, pretty apt. So the big deal about this phone, other than the fact that it's OnePlus is new, whatever, is that on the back, the triple camera setup that it has, they can disappear. There's a sort of neutral density filter that I believe is actually I forget what it's called.
Electrochromic,
like finish or material inside of the glass that hides it when it's not in use. Although I understand it doesn't hide it perfectly or entirely successfully in strong light. I think you can still kind of see through it. It's not perfectly opaque, but it's not there when you don't want it to be there. And I guess it can also act as a sort of neutral density filter when you're taking photos, which doesn't at all sound useful to me on a smartphone camera with a tiny sensor and a tiny lens and a mediocre aperture where light's already a problem, but whatever.
So we don't have to get into it here, but there's definitely a purpose for it. I'll just say that. It's not a useless thing, but unfortunately, in the case of at least this implementation, and very likely anyone that would be based on this, it's going to impose a hue shift. Basically, it's going to really super emphasize purples, deep blues, anything in that color range, and so you're going to have to correct a lot of color in software if you were to try to use this as an actual neutral density filter.
Yeah. But apart from the neutral density filter, it also has kind of an interesting bill of materials. So the back is leather. I think there's a piece of leather on the left, piece of leather on the right, with this superfluous, unsymmetrical stitch running down each side that bothers me really, really badly. And I likened it to sort of like a pants zipper, kind of unzipping there with the cameras just dangling out. But I don't think it's the most attractive design myself. But around the sides, the frame is PVD gold, which is physical vapor deposition. It's an even finish of sort of very, 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 very thin gold on the metal frame surrounding the edge. And yeah, this is basically just an exercise in what they can build rather than a consumer product, mixing together these sort of intense, interesting materials and this weird, wacky camera hiding design. But this is not coming into your pocket anytime soon.
Right. So, to be fair, the leather stitching thing, we saw Samsung, of course, do it as like just a fake plastic texture. And I think it was the LG G4 that had something very similar to this. So the leather isn't super new, but that's, I think, probably just a touch that McLaren wanted to have there. Kind of a look at us, we're different because we're different.
And as someone who likes leather in electronics, it doesn't happen very often. It's been a while since we saw leather in a commercially shipping product, so I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah. And I don't know that this is necessarily real leather, but I'm going to assume it is. Which, cheers to that. There, as long as it's not a creepy plastic kind of thing, that's always a good sign. But as many people have pointed out, and I happen to agree, chances are you're just going to throw a case on this. So I don't know that really leather is that much of a benefit.
Yeah, and it's not going to assist in longevity by any means. So one of the things Jules just asked in chat is this vegetable tanned? As Android Police's resident leather expert, because I am a hobbyist leather worker, I don't think that it is. That looks like a chrome tan to me based on the color. You don't often see bright colors like this in vegetable tans, especially lighter colors, because they tend to absorb oil and age very quickly. Based on just the color, I would bet this is a chrome tan. They're also less likely to stain. They're not as long-term durable when it comes to things like stretching and abrasion, but they age more gracefully over the period of their shorter lifespan is, I guess, one way of putting it. So it's not vegetable tan, unfortunately, which I would like. And it's not going to make the phone any more durable. Neither will the PVD gold on the frame, because that's a very, very thin layer. Even just, I'm sure, taking it in and out of your pocket enough times over a couple of years could probably wear it away in spots. So this is not going to be a super durable device.
I'd even go so far as to say that just holding it in your hands enough, maybe it may actually wear it away. Again, over time, it's not something that's going to happen immediately. But, after 2 years, how many phones actually do look brand new out of the box?
All of mine do, Cody. All of mine do.
Some of mine do. But yeah, so cheers to them for experimenting with stuff. It's awesome seeing any sort of like new motion in that field. I am very interested in the electrochromic glass. I will admit, I see absolutely no reason whatsoever to hide your camera lenses. That to me is kind of like a novelty, just to be able to say you can do it. But I don't see a purpose behind it. I don't think anyone wants that or cares about that. It might look kind of neat if you're doing like a fashion photo kind of situation, but outside of that, don't care. But the possibility of using it as an ND filter is at least kind of clever. It's interesting. It poses potential use.
But on another note of things that pose potential use, I guess, to someone, but not so far, TCL's foldable.
Indeed. So TCL has shown off their own concept phone. This is apparently one of 20 or more potential designs that they've shown off. And this one's going to be a fairly square screen. Um, it is a taco fold, so the screen is actually on the inside of the fold. And strangely, they've decided to not put any sort of screen or display on the outside of the device, at least so far. Again, this is one of 20 designs, and they haven't really committed to anything. And in fact, they've been telling many people that this is definitely not a final design, but they intend to have something fairly final next month in Barcelona for Mobile World Congress. So who's to say how close this actually is going to be to something that they uh, will say ship. Um, but they've come up with a pretty nice hinge design, so it doesn't have kind of that awkward hinge of the Galaxy Fold. And thanks to the shape, they're not making a big sacrifice like the Razor has done. So overall, I think this is possibly one of the best folds or folding devices that I've seen, just in terms of what could be.
The hinge looks a little nicer than some of the stuff we've seen in shipping products already. So yeah, it's not too bad. I do question the popularity of a device that could only work while it's open rather than folded. Like you can't even check notifications without opening it. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's a concept. This is probably not actually going to manifest in a shipping product.
Well,
No,
I would certainly hope that they account for that specific use case, because it
yeah.
is by far the biggest issue with a device like this.
I guess it could read them to you or something. The assistant can do that.
Yeah, it's possible. But I would certainly want something for, let's say, an incoming call.
Imagine
Uh,
sexting with this phone if it was reading your notifications. That'd be wild.
no kidding. Also, just I don't know why, but I just find the notion that you pop open the phone, and for some reason it's showing you your text messages immediately instead of like just a notification. Because also awkward possibilities. Always hooray for awkward possibilities.
Indeed.
So,
So
uh, yay for another folding phone, I guess.
we'll
But
see if it
everyone seems to
manifests in a
have
shipping
one.
product. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, at the
everyone
point
seems
they
to
feel
have
like a
folding phones right
novelty.
now.
Yeah.
In a way, I almost want to give OnePlus credit for the fact that they're the one company not jumping up and saying, "Look at our folder."
Well, they're sort of beholden to their parent company and what they give them from the parts bin, and there'll probably be a little bit of a delay on that.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But yeah, we'll see more about uh, a folding device from TCL next month. In the meantime, TCL has plenty of other things to show off. But before we get into that, do you want to take this one?
I will. Before we get into that, you should get into our Twitch chat and subscribe to Android Police. The Android Police podcast is live on Twitch 4 times a week. We can't do it without your support. And the best way to show that you love me personally, Ryan Hager, is by subscribing to Android Police on Twitch. You get a special emoji of me, as you can see being spammed in the comments right now. You also get extra entries into some Android Police giveaways. Tiers start at just $5 a month, but you can also subscribe entirely free if you have an Amazon Prime account. You don't pay anything. Jeff Bezos gives us the money himself personally. He drives to my house, writes me a check every month. You do need to manually press subscribe every month when you subscribe via your Android Prime subscription, but it's free. You can support the show. And if you'd like to learn more about it, you can go to twitch.tv/AndroidPolice and read our bio. If you don't use Twitch, you can head to androidpolice.com and hit the donate button to help us out as well. Thanks.
And just to be clear, in case it wasn't in case it wasn't obvious, Jeff Bezos has to deliver each month.
He does.
So
Like
make
child
sure that
support.
you click and resubscribe each month. Otherwise, I mean, the man just doesn't have enough to do. Send the Bezos to Ryan's place.
Yeah. So
Anyway, so back to TCL.
all of their not folding phones.
Yeah, they're going to have actually quite a few of these. So they've shown off 3 additional ones. This is the TCL 10L, the 10 5G, and the 10 Pro. They're all going to be quad camera phones. each one is going to be generally sharing a lot of similar features, but apparently the cameras are not necessarily going to match across all all the different models. At least that's kind of the way it sounds. And each of the models will, of course, be bringing its own oddball little touches. So
And
the
its
Pro,
own screens, which is kind of interesting.
oh yeah, yeah, they're going to be using screens apparently from TCL's sister company. What was the name? TCL CSOT.
Yeah, because TCL's been
Which,
making large format displays and I think a couple of phone displays, but they haven't. I mean, the TVs are those panels are in everything now, but you don't see TCL displays a whole lot in phones. The space is mostly dominated, especially with the AMOLED stuff, by Samsung and LG, and there's a Japanese company I can't remember that's made a few. But there's so this is cool to see somebody else breaking into that space. Hopefully, they're good.
yeah, and TCL has been making a lot of moves over the last few years. So, they're doing a good job of really kind of coming up out of nowhere.
Yeah,
And also one interesting point is this is not technically the very first phone, but it's going to be effectively the start of TCL selling under its own name. Of course, everyone who follows the space is familiar with Alcatel, BlackBerry, Palm. They've all been all those names have been shipping for a while, but they've been shipping with TCL made phones.
yeah.
Now TCL is actually going to be shipping under its own name, which this feels, and sorry for the possible ghostly reference here, but this feels very similar to when HTC made its debut as its own name instead of just making phones for other companies.
Yeah, that's a
But
big deal.
yeah, this is a huge step for them, and depending on how they start approaching carriers, this could actually be a really good contender for the both budget and mid-range phone market.
Well, I mean, we'll see because I mean, on the subject of approaching carriers, these are powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon 7 series chipsets, or at least the 5G version is. And those to date, I don't think any Snapdragon 7 series chip has appeared in a single US product yet. In fact, the only 6 series product I can think of is we got the Pixel 3a, right? Which is a 670 something. I don't quite remember. But we don't usually see these sort of high mid-range Qualcomm chips landing in the US, and there's good possibility, given that we might not. That was
Oh,
all I
you
had.
just
That was
you
it.
ended you ended abruptly, and I didn't realize it was
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
okay. Um, yeah. So, yeah, definitely. There's a lot of potential here for some interesting things to happen in that regard. Though, I wouldn't be surprised if some of the 7 series started coming back to the U.S.
Yeah, I just mean
Starting
that
now.
it hasn't happened yet. So like
Yeah.
if it does, this would be a new debut. And for all we know, Qualcomm could be like pushing the 7 series even harder than the 8 series. But to date, we haven't seen any Snapdragon 7 series stuff land in any products in the United States.
Right. So, anyway, let's see. The Getting back to the specifics of the devices, the screens are probably going to be not terribly unique or interesting in two of the phones, but the Pro itself is going to be shipping with an AMOLED display, so that should be awfully pretty. Um, they are also they're also basically saying that the Pro is going to have an in-display fingerprint sensor. I'm assuming it's probably going to be Qualcomm, so uh, very likely what we've already seen in the past. I wouldn't expect anything too unique there. And the cameras. So apparently they're going to be shipping with a in two of the phones, not the Pro, it's going to be a 48 megapixel primary camera. The Pro is going to go to a 64 megapixel sensor. And then they're also going to have ultra wide and macro lenses
Oh, I'm all about
on.
the macro, man.
I am curious about that they're being so specific about having a macro lens.
Well, they're not the first one to do it. The OnePlus
Oh no
7T and
no
the OnePlus 7T Pro have macro cameras as well, and they're awesome. I love it.
Yeah. I'm just interested because I want to know how often people are using these.
Yeah, to be fair, we are not indicative of the general population. And sometimes when I'm really lazy, I'm like, I don't want to go find my macro lens, and I don't know where my macro tube is. I'll just bust out my OnePlus 7T and take a macro photo if I want to see the texture, the finish, or the subpixel arrangement on a phone that I can't quite make out with my naked eye. Like it's really useful. And being able to get close to stuff, I really enjoy macro photography and blowing up tiny stuff. So I like seeing this as a trend in phones. I hope more of them have it.
You heard it here first. Ryan likes blowing up tiny things.
It's true.
And it looks like I actually misread this. I apologize. Both the 10 Pro and the 10 5G are going to have the 64 megapixel camera sensor. It's only the 10L that is going to be with the 48 megapixel. So, and it's not actually clear what the fourth lens is going to do. But apparently the 10 Pro, the one thing that they have been specific about is it's going to have a 2.9 oh, I do not remember what
Micron.
that is called. Micron. Thank you. 2.9 micron photocells. So possibly some interesting uses there.
Or is it nanometer? Are they the same thing? I'm not sure.
I do not recall. So Jules is saying micron. So we're going to go with micron.
Okay.
Anyway, so let's see.
Wait, 2.9 microns for individual pixels on a 64 megapixel sensor? That's a big sensor.
Right.
Physically large. I don't know about that. That would be a very big sensor.
Yeah, I'm curious. Very curious.
Because usually these high megapixel ones, they're binned down. It might be like 2.9 with like 9 pixel binning, but we'll see.
That's very possible. And just really quickly from a visual commentary, I gotta say, I like the look of the rear of the Pro. It has kind of a raccoon band going across for where the camera sensors or where the camera lenses.
Yeah, I like that.
And yeah, instead of having the hump, which it's not even a particularly bad hump in either of these other phones, but I like that raccoon band.
I like linear
I hope
camera
that's what
arrangements.
Yeah, I hope that's the name that this actually gets, is raccoon band. But yeah, so anyway, let's see. The phones will be further detailed later. And it looks like they're going to be starting at about $500 in the US.
They're saying it's coming to the US, so maybe my prognostications regarding the 7 series are wrong. But
well, that could be just like one of these models. It's not necessarily clear which one or all of them, one, two, three, whatever. But at least some of them should be coming to the US and starting at 500.
Good. It's a decent price.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm curious which ones will be at 500, because a 5G phone at 500, I kind of don't see that happening.
Well, it's kind of pushed this generation between Qualcomm's 700 series with the built-in 5G modem and MediaTek's upcoming Dimensity 800, which has the built-in 5G modem. So we're going to see a mid-range push into 5G starting in 2020.
Oh, for sure. We definitely are. I'm just not sure I believe it'll be at $500.
We'll see.
Yeah, it certainly could. Anyway, moving on to the Galaxy X Cover Pro, Samsung's new rugged phone. They're hitting the market.
Samsung's first phone with a maneuverable battery in how long?
Yes, true. So this is actually going to be a kind of a departure, at least a little bit of a departure from the Actives. It certainly still borrows a lot of the same things, including configurable buttons. It, of course, has a rubberized, rugged exterior. It's going to be
with Android Pie.
Oh, yes, I know. I was going to get to that. But yeah, so for whatever reason, they're promising it'll ship with Pie, which will happen. I'm sure they'll get it out with Android 10 soon enough, but still. Why?
Yeah.
You don't need to ship with Pie these days. Anyway, so this is going to have an IP69 rating, which is pretty serious. at that point, like, you may as well just throw this in a pool and leave it there for a while if you just feel like it. It's also going to have the U.S. military's rating for impact survivability. It's basically 810G rated, and it's going to support what they call wet touch and glove mode. So if the screen is wet, you can touch it, and it's actually going to detect the touch properly. And glove mode, honestly, if you've used a Samsung phone in the last several years, this has kind of already been there. Basically, it starts accepting just about anything that has even the smallest amount of electric capacitance. So, yeah, you can use it when it's cold out and you're wearing gloves. But yes, like you said before, the key feature, it has a big ass removable battery. So you can pop out its 4050 milliamp battery and swap it, which cheers to that.
Yeah, and even though it's one of Samsung's, ruggedized, durable phones, it's not totally derpy looking. It's got a modern design, fairly modern bezels, curved edges, a hole punch screen, it looks like. The only thing that I can't figure out looking on this, it looks like the press release doesn't mention it either. Where's the fingerprint sensor? Because for a phone of this level,
I'm
we're looking at 4 gigs of RAM launching with Pi. I would have assumed it would have a fingerprint sensor on back, but it doesn't. I don't know if there's one in the screen because that seems like that would be a little more expensive than what this phone targets. Is it built into the power button? It looks like there's like a little divot
That's
there.
what I was gonna say. In the side view, it does look like there's a divot that a finger could possibly go into. Hard to say.
Yeah, but the I just checked the press, which was like in Swedish or something, and there's no mention of where the fingerprint sensor is, so that's odd.
They could do a face unlock.
Could be in screen.
And actually, you know what? A face unlock would make a lot of sense, given basically A, that they are doing the hole punch screen, and B, if they're focused on if they're highlighting the glove mode. A glove mode obviously is also something where fingerprint sensors wouldn't work. So
looks like it's in screen according to.
Yep, that's what Jules is saying.
There we go.
So okay, wow. Well, that should be interesting.
It actually doesn't look too bad, other than the lack of RAM in the ancient version of Android that it's launching with. I wouldn't be
yeah
too unhappy with a phone like this.
Also notably, it is a 6.3-inch screen that's going to be at 1080 resolution. So that's a little bit of a knock against it. It's not going to be too bad, but could be a little bit higher res for the size.
PPI could leave something to be desired.
Yeah. But so it goes. It's also, this is, just to be clear, a mid-range phone. It's going to be shipping with 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of storage, an Exynos 9611 processor. So yeah, it's not going to be a powerhouse, not by any stretch of the imagination.
Indeed. I think it's due to come out for the rest of Europe in February. No word on a US launch yet?
Well, they've only mentioned Finland.
Okay.
So we will see. There's going to be a lot of... oh, wait, I'm sorry. I misread that. So Finland is what they've already shown off, or that's where they're showing it and committing to. And apparently the rest of Europe will happen in February, which I assume is going to be more like an announcement.
Yeah, and who knows if it comes to the US, or if a variant of it comes to the US, it'll probably be Sans Exynos, because Samsung prefers to go with Qualcomm in the United States.
So what I feel like, I know that this isn't meaningful in any appreciable way, but this is US military rated as far as impact survivability. If you're going to use a US rating system, maybe release in the US. Just you don't have to. I'm just thinking it would be kind of weird not to.
That's fair.
Anyway, so yeah. Rugged phone. Not going to be too expensive. That's always a plus.
Indeed.
So I'll let you talk a little bit about Chrome.
So Chrome, now this isn't necessarily new news, but Google just announced it, so it's new-ish. But Chrome 80 is going to have a new feature. That's Chrome 80 would be the next major release of Chrome. They happen every, I think, usually on a 6-week schedule, and 79 landed, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks back. So this is the next release that's coming out very soon. So Chrome 80 is going to have a feature that automatically, or that reduces the annoyance of those notifications you get from some sites. You know, if you go to, I don't want to name anyone because I think they're the most annoying thing in the world, but you know those notifications you get where it's like, this page wants to send you notifications and it's some blog spam site or some news spam site, and they want to flood your browser with constant notifications for every new article they publish on the hope that it'll bump their views. And we don't do that, thank God. But for sites that do, they're going to run into a bit of an issue when Chrome 80 lands, because if you're one of the people who usually clicks no, like basically everyone does, I don't want to see this, stop bothering me, go away, please. The prompts aren't going to keep being as intrusive as they used to be. Now on mobile, you'll just get a little banner on the bottom of the screen that's like, notifications are blocked, and you can tap that to then enable it if you want to. But instead of getting the full dialogue every single time, instead you're just kind of told that notifications aren't happening.
Yeah, I gotta say, fortunately, I don't visit too many sites that are really pushy about this, but it's one of those things. It's taken over the internet for sure.
One of the worst things about the internet right now is those goddamn notifications, and I hate it.
I mean, it's certainly not as bad as the days of auto playing video, which CNET, you could still not do that. And yes, 100%, we will call out CNET for this. And this had become kind of the new blinking text, the annoying thing that everyone was just tired of. But yeah, it's good to see this kind of getting reined in. Unfortunately, from what I understand, there's something websites will be able to do where they can still basically prompt you to unblock this.
Yeah, so I talked a little bit with Corbin about it last night when we were even debating covering this, because this was actually announced like 3 months ago, and Google's just re-announcing it again. Because I mean, admittedly, it is a big deal, but this is old news. We've known this is coming to Chrome 80 since Chrome 80 was Canary, which was 2.5 months ago. But it'll only be an impediment for most sites in the short term, because anyone who wants to can work around it by just creating a custom type of notification. So I guess there's like some minor difference in how you can call whatever API or whatever instruction pulls up the notification, where if you do a custom implementation, it'll bypass these rules, as opposed to if you use the standard one that pulls up the default notification prompt. That one will be bypassed by these, or that one will be blocked by these changes if you're the sort of person who blocks sites. But a custom implementation can work around this. And it's probably just a matter of time until most of the sites that are really gung-ho about shoving this stuff down your throat implement these custom implementations. So
yeah, this will curtail some sites, and if nothing else, I think this will serve as kind of a polite hint that sites should probably not be so aggressive. But unfortunately, I still would not really bet on it making a big difference in the long run, not with the sites that are already so aggressive.
We've already opened this can of worms. There's nothing that can be done to get rid of it except getting rid of notifications. It's too late.
That, or at a bare minimum, just turn off the ability for sites to prompt you for it, and just basically, leave a button there saying, hey, if you want it, you can tap to get it. Otherwise, just go about your browsing.
Indeed.
But unless there's anything else, I think that'll be about it. You have anything else to add?
Nope, not really.
All right. Well, in the name of going about your browsing, we're going to let you do that in just a moment. But all the topics we've talked about today can be found at androidpolice.com/podcast. We're live 4 times a week at twitch.tv/androidpolice. And if you've got anything to tell us, if you have any thoughts, would like to share any comments, you can email us at podcast@androidpolice.com. You can find Ryan on Twitter at Ryan Hager. That's RYNEHAGER. I'm Cody Toombs on Twitter. That's Cody_Toombs, TOOMBS. Our producer, Jules Wang, is at Point Jules, and our theme music is by Home. If all goes according to plan, we should have a great episode coming up with special guests Raymond Wong from Input and Joshua Vergara with Pocket Now, direct from CES. Again, you'll want to keep track of Android Police on Twitter for more details. And whatever the case may be, we're back again on Fridays, so hope you'll tune in. Until then, take care.